we are a little bit limited on time today. We have to be done right before 1 o'clock. And if you've heard the other stormwater management sessions, you probably heard my elevator pitch already, so I'll go through it quickly. But welcome everybody. Today is our third stormwater management lunchtime learning session. Today is about inspecting and maintaining green infrastructure. And I hope that people have found these useful. I'll just say, if you have any other questions about these topics or other topics, then please let us know. We'd like to keep providing these in some way or another and make sure people get the resources that they're looking for. And as you've probably already heard, this is a program of the Currys Fork Watershed. My name is Becca. I'm the Watershed Coordinator for Currys Fork. I work for Oldham County Fiscal Court. And this program is a watershed-based effort to improve polluted waterways. So some of the work that we do includes stream restoration, streamside planting, septic system repair, rain gardens. We just planted a rain garden with Udell Botanical Gardens last fall. So looking forward to keeping everybody updated on that. And I encourage people to go visit that as things start to grow this spring. And then we also do a lot of workshops and focus a lot on education and outreach. So this is part of that effort here. We have a local watershed group called Friends of Currys Fork. We started this group last year, and we currently meet on the third Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. on Zoom. So everybody, whether you live in Currys Fork or just interested, is encouraged to participate in that. If that 10 a.m. time is not available to you, then we still want you to get involved. So you can connect with us on Facebook. We've got a Friends of Currys Fork group, or feel free to contact me directly. I'm hoping that we'll transition out of that Zoom format soon, hopefully. I know everybody else is hoping for that soon. And then the best way to contact me is either through the Facebook page or directly through email at rtrueman@oldhamcountyky.gov. And of course, this is the third of three. So this is our last stormwater management lunchtime learning session. These have been recorded. You can find those on our Facebook page. And then I just started a YouTube channel, so you can also find those, and I'll be putting other videos up there as well. So trying to make sure to reach people wherever they're at. And then once again, so the information at these sessions is provided to us by David Gamstetter. David is a project developer for Davey Resource Group. This is based out of Cincinnati. And David is responsible for building relationships with public and private partners to provide services for installing, maintaining, and inspecting green infrastructure structures and systems. And Mr. Gamstetter has extensive experience in urban forest management, invasive plant species control, park management, street and park tree master planning, and horticulture. And then just through my conversations with David, he does a lot more than that. So this is really an abbreviated version of what both David and Davey Resource does. And then the Davey Resource contact information is down here as well. And I know David has a newsletter, I believe, that goes out. So if you're looking for more information specifically through Davey Resource Group, then please send us your contact information and just let us know, and we'll connect you that way. And that's all I got for here. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and David, clarify me if there's more information on that newsletter that you mentioned, but I'm all set for you to go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah, if you want to receive our ECO newsletter, just send me your email address and name and title and where you work, and we will get you added to that. And it comes out quarterly, and there's always interesting articles in there written by people from around the country. So today I'm going to be talking about bioinfiltration. I'm going to focus on a project that we built in Cincinnati. It's kind of a unique project in that it's a very confined space with a lot of developed area around it, a lot of pervious pavement, multi-level parking garage that it receives water from the street. And so I want to talk a little bit about that project and kind of go through how it's built so you understand what you need to do to know how to inspect and maintain it into the future. So bioinfiltration is designed to replicate nature. It infiltrates and slowly releases stormwater, and it can reduce flooding downstream, that's water quantity, as well as remove pollutants, water quality. Water quality, it adsorption, so it binds with hydrocarbons and metals and stuff in the soil and to the plants. Plant uptake, it's pulling water out of the system. There's microbes in the soil that also break down hydrocarbons and other things. There's filtration, sedimentation, and then water quality. So flood control, it can infiltrate runoff, it slows runoff, and provides evapotranspiration services, all the things that nature does in one little system. So it should infiltrate at a rate of 1 to 4 inches per hour, which gives it time to remove pollutants. We don't want it to drain too fast. We want it to drain slowly over time. And then over time, it will tend to drain slower and slower as it gets clogged. The pores get clogged, pore spaces in between the soil storage layer, the gravel storage layer. And you have to be careful with compacting it. We want to maintain those pore spaces in it. So it controls runoff and flooding and improves water quality, as I said, but it also has cultural aspects. Landscape and aesthetic value is important as well. And then we can use it for target pollutant removal. Like we can put these next to a parking lot, for example. So you're getting the hydrocarbons and the things that come out of cars and filtering them off of the parking lot. So here's how it works. Typically, looking at from the bottom up, there's a gravel layer underneath there. Usually there's a geotextile fabric that separates the native soil from the gravel bed, because over time, the sediment from the native soil will work up into the gravel and clog the pores. We want to maintain those void spaces between the rock so that we have storage for water. Bioretention typically also has an underdrain. We think of a rain garden, it's simpler. It doesn't usually have an underdrain, but bioretention does. So that either flows back into a separated stormwater system, receiving waters, or it can go back into a combined sewer system, but we're still getting some benefits in water reduction and quality and improving quality. And then above that is a choker layer. So what this does is it keeps the fines from the bioretention soil from getting into the gravel bed. We usually use a course of pea gravel, and then on top of that, a course of sand, and then a bioretention soil. This is a specially mixed soil that has a ratio of large sand particles with fines and sometimes a binder, but that soil is designed to dry out, but also be able to hold water in the voids, but have enough nutrients, enough soil fines to keep the plants alive above it. We usually want about 1 feet of space from the soil to the top of the overflow inlet for water storage. And then there's a plant layer with mulch. And typically there's an overflow and a clean out for the underdrain. So water comes in from the roadway or parking area, flows through the plants, through the bioretention soil into the gravel bed. Some of it infiltrates, and excess water goes out through the outflow pipe. So this is our case study. This is Kingsgate Conference Center in Cincinnati. And this is actually the front entrance of the conference center sits below the street level. So we get water coming in off of the street, off of the driveway, off of the roof of the building. And it was flooding the back patio entrance, or actually the front patio entrance into the conference center. This is the ground floor. And you can see standing water here. So we came up with the concept of doing a small 2-chamber bioinfiltration basin. So this is one, it's separated in the middle. That's for structural support. But this is one cell. There's another one on the other side of the plaza. And we worked with the existing drain inlet. We didn't even have to change the inlet cover. So we were able to tie into the inlet, and this served as our overflow. The structure does, and then we built the concrete walls around it, create the chambers. And then this is kind of in profile how it works. There's the catch basin. Then there's the gravel storage layer with an under drain with perforated pipe. We use 6-inch pipe, and then the sand P-level gravel filter layer, choker layer to keep the fines out, and then the soil mix. So this is what it looked like when we were constructing it. We put down the geotextile fabric on the bottom so that the soil fines from the native soil don't work up into the gravel layer. You can see the perforated pipe, the holes are on the bottom of this. Our under drain, we tied into the existing structure. This is our kind of the first 3 profiles, if you will. The first one is number 57 gravel. This is the gravel storage layer for water. Then we put number 8 pea gravel on top of that, and then clean sand. It's coarse mason sand on top of that. And that keeps the fines from getting into the gravel. Here it is with the 57s in place. We put fabric on top of the overflow structure to keep stuff from getting into the pipe system. This is the clean out. We got it up above the soil level so we can get to it. This top lid unscrews, and we could fish a snake or something down there if the system gets clogged up with fines or over time with roots. And we're starting to put the bioinfiltration planting mix in. You can see the dark brown planting mix. So again, this is designed to have 12 inches between the top of the bed and the top of the overflow for storage. That's a typical standard for most of these systems. This is it when we were finished. We used natives, cardinal flower, cone flower, Shasta daisy, and panicum switchgrass. You can see there's 2 here, one on the left front corner, and then one and straight in the back. And we reset the pavers so that there's a negative drain flow to the basins. And then maintenance. So maintaining these is different than a typical landscape bed. Some of the problems are the same. We have plants we need to inspect. We need to cut back our perennials in the fall and our grasses. We need to keep weeds out of it and invasive plants. But some things are very different as well. So the most important thing is to train your staff to understand how it works and to be able to identify early signs of problems. You can fix problems very inexpensively when they first start to happen, but if you let it go along too far, then you have very expensive choices that you have to make to fix it. So the main enemies are erosion, both from within the system, but also surrounding areas. You need to keep the turf vegetation layer around it. If there's turf, keep that in as good a condition as possible. You don't want any bare soil. We need to pick up sediment and stuff that flows off of adjacent drainage areas like parking lots and roadways. Invasive plants can be a problem, especially in the larger ones. They can get away from you really fast. And if somebody doesn't know what they're doing, or they get in there with herbicides, they can cause lots of problems. But the main key is inspect them regularly. Keep a maintenance checklist so that you inspect the things that you need to. Focus on preventive maintenance to avoid costly repairs, and good housekeeping. Keep it clean. Keep the micro watershed around it as clean as possible to keep stuff from getting into it. So function, clogged outlet and loss of mulch are 2 real simple things to fix. If you don't have mulch, then you have bare soil. You have fines that are going to be getting and working down through the system or being carried to other places. Aesthetics, drying plants is very important to watch because these are designed to drain. And while we try to plant resilient native plants that have the ability to be able to grow in wet and dry areas, we also need to watch them in summer months to make sure that they don't dry out. That sounds counterintuitive, but it's a very important key. And then there's some safety things too, like loss of line of sight if it's in the right of way, making sure that people can see, making sure that tree branches and stuff don't block impede walkways and things like that. So one simple thing that people don't understand is to use double shredded hardwood. Don't use pine because it floats. And the first rain, your mulch ends up where you don't want it. So make sure that you use double shredded. It adds an organic matter to the soil a little bit and conserves moisture, dry weather. It's attractive, it helps reduce weeding. But I like to use gravel. We're not introducing as the nutrients as it breaks down, but we're not introducing fines either. And I think gravel looks attractive and it's easy to maintain. It stays in place. When you get water coming in, it's not going to float on you. And sure, you may have to bring out a wheelbarrow load of gravel every 2 or 3 years and touch up some spaces. But there's some really attractive decorative gravels, and I really think that's the way to go. I think it saves you time and money over the length of the system. Simple things. First of all, be careful where you're blowing your grass clippings. We don't want the grass clippings in there. If you look at the overflow control structure on the left, you can see it's all clogged and gummed up with grass clippings. That's an easy one. Either bag them or make sure if it's a big space like this one, that you're blowing as many as you can outside of the basin and you clean them up so they don't get back in through the inlets when it rains. Plants are very important to these. They take up nutrients and water. They stabilize the bed and they're attractive. And we can get creative with the plants that we use. We can create pollinator gardens, or if there's a particular species that you want to attract, sometimes you can do it with a special type of plant. The plants have to be able to tolerate temporary inundation. As I said, typically our natives have the best ability to do that. You just have to look at where it grows. There's some very good lists. And if you do subscribe to our newsletter, I'll be working on the spring edition. I'll be working on a list of plants for bioinfiltration basins. You can plant trees and shrubs in them. Typically, there's enough root volume for that. The ones that I'm showing you in this case study were too small for that. So we went with grasses as our biggest plant in the back. But you can incorporate them, and it's best to plant masses of things so that the people maintaining it have an easier way of identifying what they're looking at. So one of the things we need to look at is the plant health. That's an indication of what our drainage is doing. So are the plants wilting, discolored, or dying? That's a key point, because it could either be from not enough water. Maybe we have, if it's a new installation, maybe the planting mix is too lean and the water's draining too quickly for newly established plants. Maybe you need to water. Over time, maybe you need to adjust the planting mix and work in some more organics. Replace dead plants as soon as possible with more tolerant plants, or plant new plants on higher ground if there's water sitting there. That's just as important as water draining too fast. If there's sitting water, then it's going to fill the voids in the soil, and it's going to drown the plant. Plants need to get oxygen from all parts of their system, including the soil. As much as possible, hand pull weeds. Don't use herbicides. The only time we really even think about using herbicides in these type of installations is when we have invasive plants that are very difficult to control. And there's some new nasty ones like Japanese hops that are just crazy. You can just about watch them grow. It's like kudzu. As I said before, pruning, maintain lines of sight. Make sure that there is some sunlight getting in to kill pathogens. Make sure you pick up trash. I mean, keeping the adjacent watershed clean is the most important thing you can do. Plastic bottles and cans can get in these systems and clog them up, big problem, especially in very urbanized areas. Watering, you want to water right after it's planted, during the first growing season, and during droughts. So here we have a problem. The plants are growing over the inlet for the overflow control structure. So we would want to make sure that this is cut back and that there's access, because when this gets wet and water in it, the plants fall over and it blocks the inlet, and it could cause problems with flooding. Here we have an overgrown bed. It looks pretty good from a distance, but there are problems with invasives. This needs to be thinned out and maintained in a little better situation. It looks good from a distance, but when you get in there, it has some issues with vegetation overrunning the inflow and outflow structures. Here we have dead plants, obviously. This needs to be reestablished. We should have about 75% of the area covered with vegetation with native plants. So here they had standing water. It killed the plants. You can see they pulled them and cut them out, but it all needs to be cleaned out and replanted and remulched. This one looks pretty good. We do have some dead plants in the center. Again, it was standing water in this situation. So we need to look at getting the water draining through the system better. Maybe we need to look at changing out the plants with ones that are more tolerant of wet feet. These were both grass plants that died. Here we have a problem with plant heaving. This can happen this time of year, especially in new installations. This needs to be reset and replanted, and mulch needs to be touched up. Most communities have a checklist of things to inspect for on bioretention maintenance. So see what's available locally. In some cases, like some cities have these lists that they use. Sometimes you can get them and modify them if there's a particular problem in your area with an invasive weed or something like that, you can modify them. But the main things to inspect are pre-treatment. If there's a forebay, that's where most of the litter, the sediment's gonna end up first, and that's where your first focus should be. You should make sure it's dewatering, make sure it's draining. Most of these inspection forms ask you when the last rainfall event was, and if there's standing water in them. If you're doing this for, inspecting for somebody else, those are important things to keep track of. Because as I said at the beginning, over time, the pores will get clogged and they will drain slower and slower. And at some point, you may have to dig out that media and start over again. Watch the vegetation, make sure that there's no patterns. If everything in the center is dying, it's probably standing water issue. If everything is up on the upper horizons on the outside is dying, it's probably not getting enough water. Or maybe you need to look at changing the plants. Main infiltration area, typically these get eroded. The water's coming in pretty fast. So we need to keep an eye on that. And check the slopes of the embankment or the surrounding areas. Make sure there's no bare soil spots. These are easy things to fix. You can just buy a little piece of sod or something and put it in. That's what I believe is the easiest solution. Trying to get seeds to grow and stabilize it while it's raining and stuff is just going to cause more problems. And the outlets and overflow. Make sure the water can get out of the system. So this one, we can see it's got water standing. It's way too long. The pores in this one are clogged. I believe this is a traditional rain garden, but it's not infiltrating. So that probably will need to be fixed, probably by dredging it and putting in new gravel layer and or soil layer, but it should be draining a little more quickly. Here we have the same issue. We have sediment buildup. It's coming in off the parking lot. And there's standing water, it can't get out because of the sediment, and a lot of the plants are dying around it. These are just very common things that we see. So the biggest thing is water standing for more than 24 hours after a rain event. If so, you may be able to try doing core aeration. There's equipment that you can rent and walk behind that cuts plugs, cuts holes out. Try that first. That might be the least expensive way. But if it doesn't work, then you may have to require replacement of the media and or cleaning out the gravel and or replacing it. Check the under drain pipes if they're there, run a snake through them. You can also, most of the sewer companies around have people with cameras. You can hire one of them to come and run a camera down there. If it's going to be a really expensive fix, that might be the best way to figure out what the problem is. And then, you know, if you need to replace your soil mix, then you have to dig everything out and set it aside and clean it out and get started again. So are the inlets in need of structural repair? Are there holes in them? Are, you know, sometimes these things are in the right of way and they get hit by cars and stuff that need to be repaired. You know, clean them out, make sure that they're functioning, make sure that they're structurally sound. Check the forebays. This one is one of the projects I worked on in Sweden, and you can see they have the inlets with the metal grate covers, and then the forebay where the two gentlemen are standing. Most of the stuff, the litter, the bottles, the cans and stuff gets caught in there before it flows into the main part of the system. I thought that was a really good design in a very small space. So again, it's mostly just good housekeeping. Keep the trash and debris picked up. Make sure there's not sediment accumulating on the surface. It's going to work into the system. Make sure that water's flowing through the system. Watch for animal burrows, groundhogs, muskrats or problems. And then the side slopes. Is there any erosion? Are there sinkholes or instability? Remove everything, keep it clean, and make sure it's drained so that you don't have mosquito problems like this one. So if this was in your neighborhood, you wouldn't want it there. I mean, it's totally unkept. It needs to be cleaned out. It's a problem. And it shouldn't get like this. You should be able to keep the areas around it clean so that you don't have to deal with this mess. Again, this one, kind of same thing. It got silted in, standing water, all the vegetation died. It's full of trash. This is not an asset to the community. It may still function somewhat, but you can see that with a higher level of maintenance, it would be more greatly accepted. Animal feces is a problem. It's going straight into the water system in a lot of cases. It contributes fine. This is the kind of thing that needs to be cleaned up when you're out there doing your inspections. Not very pleasant to think about, but it's a very common thing. So with that, this is my last slide. These are just a simple checklist of things that you can go through to, you know, in the beginning of your processing, simple things to watch for that will save time and money over the long run. Again, mulch. Sorry, I thought that was my last slide, but mulch, if you don't use double shredded, this is what's going to happen. And it's going to clog up your inlet. It's going to go where you don't want it, and it's going to be a problem. So with that, I'll take a few questions. I got about 2 more minutes.
And I don't know if it was my connection, but I didn't catch that last slide you had of the mulch. Do you mind just bringing that up again?
Sure.
And then if anybody has any questions, yeah, we've got to wrap up right before 1. I can still stay on, but if anyone has questions for David, then we'll take those right now.
Can you see that?
Not yet.
It's black for me.
Jim, did you have a question? It looked like you were talking, but I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I had a double mutes on. Hey, David, have you got a useful technique you use to contact mini malls and stuff like that that need to maintain their systems and just kind of ignore you?
No, that's probably a struggle for everyone. I would say talk to the MS4 coordinator and see if they have a list of contacts. That would be my recommendation.
You can forward that to me, Jim, and I can connect that with the MS4 office. Gail asked, do you ever have issues with larger woody debris following flooding events? How does that affect maintenance contracts?
Yeah, it's mostly the forebays, and sometimes it could be expensive. Most communities will have a kind of a catch-all. If this happens, you have your basic level of services that you have to provide, but then if there's something catastrophic, typically they'll work with you on it.
All right, I'm going to let you go, David. I'll stay on a minute if anybody has any other questions or wants to talk about something, but thank you so much for these presentations. And if somebody has a question for David, you can send it to me and I'll connect you.
Just thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I can't stay on. I have a 1 o'clock call that I can't miss, but thank you all for attending these 3 sessions. And, I'm around if you can always reach out to me or Gail. We can talk sometime through Becca. Thank you.
And did Marcia, you or Jim, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
No, just learning. Thank you.
Yeah, Becca, I was just wondering, on 53 where they have the O'Reilly's, that thing's been a pain in the neck ever since they put it in. And they have a detention pond that flows right through our subdivision. And man, it's got woody trees growing in it. And I don't think that the cyclone separator works anymore. And we'll be contacting O'Reilly's to have them maintain it. But oh my goodness. Pretty much everything he said there has been violated, and it's tough to get people to respond, even when you're approached them in a cooperative, let's work on this together kind of position.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just keep working it.
Yeah, have you talked with the engineering department about
Oh, yeah.
that? You have?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, not recently, but I tell you, the last time we did, that was back when Jim was chief engineer, and because of state connections, we had them fined $25,000 a day, and they got it done in the first day. So, because it was a state environmental issue. Not sure we have that resource anymore.
Okay.
But we'll see what we can do. All right.
Yeah, definitely follow up on that. And that could be, I'm not familiar enough with the site to speak too much on it, but it could be something to where we can have that be a learning experience. We could, bring some people out to say, this is how you do it, and make it a positive experience.
Yeah, the contractor, the developer that owns the lots, he has a contract with O'Reilly's to build wherever there's a new advanced auto, they build O'Reilly's, whether it's a good business idea or not. So they threw up this building, and he still owns the other lots where this detention pond is, and he's in Florida. And when they built O'Reilly's, they promised all kinds of stuff like special fences and good turning radiuses. Didn't do any of that stuff. So that's the kind of person we're having to deal with. But I'll talk to you later if I end up in the dead end.
Yeah, appreciate you pursuing it.
It all goes into Currys Creek.
Yep, it does. Yep, for sure. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for joining. Appreciate it.
Thanks for setting them up.
Bye.